Yeah, when they say 2030, I don't think they're kidding. I mean, obviously, not everything will be in by then, but they want a situation where it's basically irreversible by then. And one of the things in the 2026 that we're going to see is the advancement of censorship, and also, if we're talking about 2026, which I think is a really pivotal year. If we're still not challenging this effectively by the end of 2026, then we are going to be in some serious trouble. One of the things I think is going to be a feature also of 2026, we'll see, is the non-human element of all this. Because when I'm talking about, and I go into this in the roadmap extensively, I'm talking about ultimately this human level, this global cult network is answering to a non-human force in this astral dimension, which is very close to this one comparatively, but outside of visible light, which is why we can't see it. And I saw the other day a trailer, a very early trailer actually, for a Spielberg film coming out in the summer called Disclosure Day. And I tell you what's kind of interesting, well, interesting to me anyway. All the way through since basically the 50s onwards, people have been talking about, quote, aliens. But what they've been describing them as is a quote, physical alien, like aliens within our dimension of reality. And I'm not saying they don't exist, but the real point of control is coming from this astral dimension. They are interdimensional entities, not one-dimensional entities. They can move in and out of this dimension. So when people say, I saw this UFO and it appeared out of nowhere, and then it just disappeared into nowhere, or they say they saw an entity at the end of the bed that just appeared out of nowhere and then disappeared into nowhere. From the perspective of normal, people just laugh and say that's ridiculous, that's not possible, and that's perfectly explainable. What they do is they come out of the astral, they enter visible light, and to the observer, limited to visible light, they've appeared out of nowhere. When they increase the frequency back into the astral level, they appear to disappear into nowhere. But they haven't disappeared at all. They've just moved out of this limited band of frequency we call visible light. And so what's interesting, as I was saying, is suddenly, and I saw this in the trailer, they've stopped really talking just about physical aliens now. They've started talking about interdimensional aliens, right? And some of these people on Capitol Hill, these so-called UFO whistleblowers from within the military, who are talking about what they saw and what they gleaned, they're talking about interdimensional entities. I quote in the roadmap a U.S. military project, which was declassified by the CIA a few years ago, called the Gateway Project. And this was based on a man called Robert Monroe, who created the Monroe Institute. And he was a media executive, but he had this ability, developed this ability to project his consciousness into this astral dimension. And he wrote a number of books about it. And so they had this US military psychological type project called Gateway, where they got other people with this ability in, as well as Robert Monroe. And they studied what they experienced when they projected their consciousness into this astral dimension. And, they experienced so many reptilian entities in this astral dimension that this US military project gave them a collective name of the alligators. And I've been saying all these years since the 1990s that these entities are interdimensional. They far from always, but a dominant force seems to be reptilian. And they operate in the astral dimension. And that's what these people experienced. And so suddenly we're starting to hear in officialdom and mainstream this talk of interdimensional entities. Well, that's exactly what I've been saying all these years. And we have to be careful with anything to do with UFOs and so-called aliens, because there is a potential a project called Bluebeam, which goes back decades, exposed by a Canadian journalist called Serge Monast, that there was a plan, and I think it's in the background, to stage a fake alien invasion that would bring together a unification of governments, global governments, to meet the threat, the alien threat. And it would be ironic because in the end, it's a non-human force that's manipulating human society. But to twist it and play it in another way would certainly allow them to justify the centralization of power globally. Because if you have a war and a country has a war, you have a war cabinet that makes the decisions outside of the usual parliamentary process. Well, if you could have a external threat to the planet, as it was projected and sold, then you would justify a global war cabinet that would be making decisions for the world.
That's basically COVID all over again, right? With the WHO, the centralized power outside all of the governments, who had to face on the global threat of a virus in this case.
Yeah, it's the same principle. It's a principle I coined the phrase in the 1990s: problem, reaction, solution. You create a problem. But you make sure someone else is blamed for it, not you. You then get the reaction from the public of something must be done, a reaction of fear, of outrage, or whatever the problem is. And then you openly offer the solutions to the problems you've created. I mean, if you look at this horror in Bondi Beach in the last week, well, obviously that's a problem. And the reaction was understandable outrage. Well, what's the solution they're all putting forward? More and more censorship and deletion of the ability to have an opinion about Israel. That's a classic problem, reaction, solution. 9/11 was a classic problem, reaction, solution. Problem, the 9/11 attacks, which were not done by 19 Arab hijackers. I've written a very thick book called The Trigger, that exposes all that. I mean, it's just ridiculous, the official story. And as a result of that, the solution was all those wars in the Middle East, endlessly, year after year, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Libya, etc. And these things are happening all the time. And so if you want to centralize power globally and impose the same policy globally, you need a global problem that you can offer a global solution for. And so what's human-caused climate change? It's a global problem, allegedly, and so you have you pursue a global solution. And if you investigate human-caused climate change, I mean, that is just another fantasy story made to justify the collective global action. But you see, problem, reaction, solution, there's another version of it that I've dubbed no problem, reaction, solution, where you don't need a real problem. You just need the perception of one. It doesn't have to be a real problem, but as long as the public think it is, then you can justify your solution. And no problem reaction solutions are happening all the time. It happened during COVID. It happened happening now during human-caused climate change. These are all no problem reaction solutions. But you get a real problem. It's even more potent because people see in their experience what happened and get furious or fearful, and then it's a doddle to offer the solution.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's where Project Bluebeams comes in as well, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly. And the thing is about the solutions. Whenever there is an event, whether real or otherwise, always look at what the solution is, because that'll tell you what was behind the event, really behind it. And if it is, and it virtually entirely is, deletion of more freedom and the imposition of more censorship, then it's time to ask massive questions about who was really behind the problem.
So coming into 2026, yeah, because if you describe all of this, it's a lot, and a lot is happening at the same time, and it feels like it's all coming together, and it's closing in fast. Like, what can we expect the coming year? And maybe even more importantly so is, what can we do? What must we do?
Well, people say about me, who've not read my books, by the way, you never give solutions. Well, first of all, knowing the problem is part of the solution, but I do. But, people so often don't want to hear the solutions because it involves them. They want someone else to do it for them. It's not going to happen. If you want a savior, don't look to Trump. Find yourself a mirror. Because 8 billion people cannot be controlled by a relative handful. Impossible. If those 8 billion or vast tracts of them will not cooperate with the few. Impossible. Oh, when Rutte was Prime Minister of the Netherlands, and the guy that followed him and whoever is now, I mean, they come out of their office making a statement and they say, this is what we've decided is going to happen. Okay. Well, what if enough people in the Netherlands, this applies to every country, say, we're not doing that? No, mate. We're not doing that. We're not acquiescing to what you demand. We are not obeying what you tell us to do. Where's the power? There is none. Because the real massive penny drop is authority has no power. The only power it has is the acquiescence of the population. In other words, the population gives its power to authority in the name of acquiescence, in the form of acquiescence. And, fascism, communism, tyranny is never imposed by fascists, communists, and tyrants, because there's never enough of them. They come in because the population acquiesce to fascism, communism, and tyranny. We are in control. If only people realized what the situation has been all along, all the way through known human history, while the few have controlled the many, the same dynamic has been sitting there waiting, that the power is with us. But it's only with us collectively if we put down the fault lines of division, most of them irrelevant, and realize that we're all in the gun sights of the same force. You see, people say, "Oh, you're talking about non-human entities, and oh my goodness, that's fearful and disempowering." Hold on a minute. What do you mean disempowering? That non-human force is imposing its will on the population through this global cult, which imposes the will of that force through the political structures in the different countries. And the political structures in the different countries rely on imposing that on the acquiescence of the population of those countries. In other words, the whole edifice of control going into another dimension, the whole edifice of control is founded on human acquiescence to authority. And if we cease to do so, all that hierarchy into another dimension has its power deleted because we won't cooperate. And this is why it was so important. I was talking at the start of this chat about the way they systematically break up perception into different groups of rigid, unquestioning beliefs, religious, scientific, political, cultural, that can then be played off against each other to create the very disunity that is necessary to bring about human control. We could bring this down tonight, tomorrow, if we put down the fault lines of division, put down the limitations of rigid, unquestioning belief, and realize that we together are unstoppable and uncontrollable. And what they want, and this is why this period is so crucial, is to connect the human brain, mind, body to artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence would never again question authority or come to the conclusion that, hold on, the power they have is only the power we've given them. Those thoughts will not manifest in an AI-controlled mind. That's why we are looking over the precipice now of total human control. That would not generate resistance because it would never think of it. You know, we've really got to get our asses in gear fast, because if we do, then it's over. If we don't, then it's dystopia. And even more so for our kids and grandkids.
It's funny how people feel so powerless. And when you say all of this, like the whole big agenda and everything, what's going on, and you realize that you're one of the guys, one of the people who resisted all of that shit until now, that makes you such a powerful being to begin with, eh? So you have so much more power than you think. You're not powerless. You're really super powerful. I mean, the fact that you're standing here today and not complying with all that shit, that says a lot about how powerful you are, right?
People can be as powerful as they choose to be, or as weak as they choose to be. It is just a choice. It's just a perception. And, you know, self-identity is phenomenally important. It's a basic foundation importance to human control. If you perceive yourself, if you self-identify as a human, that's who you are, then you are self-identifying with limitation. You are self-identifying with it's not possible. Because when you look around the so-called material world, everything is so dense and so limited, apparently, in our perception of it's really solid, when it isn't. That you think in terms of limitation. When you believe that you're subject to some judgmental God judging you on one life on earth, you are in a state of subordination, weakness. I've got to bend the knee to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
When you realize that what you really are is a state of formless, infinite awareness, you are a state of being aware, then there are no limitations except that which you perceive them to be. And the indoctrination of the sense of limitation is foundation control system of the simulation. They want you to believe that you are limited. You are not. You are limitless. But if you perceive yourself to be limited, you will be limited. What you believe, you perceive. What you perceive, you will experience. If you perceive you are a state of infinite awareness, having a brief human experience, and you have the power, not of the universe is the simulation, the power of infinity. And when you realize that in the end, consciousness is indestructible, eternal, then what is there to fear? What is there to fear? Some non-human entities, bunch of prats. They can't be anything else but a bunch of prats, given what they're trying to do. And basically, there's a whole area to go into, and doing the roadmap of why this simulation was created to start with. And it's the fact that they're feeding off us. They're feeding off our energy. They're feeding off our low vibrational energy. They're feeding off the energy we give off in the form of frequency when we are in states of fear and depression and anxiety and resentment and regret and hatred, conflict, war. We give off frequencies, as well known in mainstream science. We give off frequencies when we're in those emotional states and mental states. They're feeding off it. When we're in states of joy and happiness and peace and appreciation, they are high frequency states. They don't want them. They want the low frequency states because that matches the state they're in. So they have no interest at all in this being a world, a reality of love, of peace, of harmony. They've no interest in that. You don't feed them. All these other low vibrational emotions all around this base emotion of fear is what feeds them. And that's why the world is as it is. But it doesn't have to be. We can change it anytime we want. It's just a choice. Choice right now between fear and love, actually, as the great Bill Hicks, American comedian, once said. And crucially, we put down the fault lines of division. It doesn't mean we have to agree on everything. We're living in an infinite reality of all potential and all possibility. Why would you agree on everything? But if we agree on the fact that there's a force that's targeting all of us, and that together we can bring that force to an end overnight, then maybe it would be a good idea to put the fault lines down and concentrate on that rather than what divides us. Because the reasons for division are being given to us by the minute, never mind the hour, for that reason.
So it's a good idea for 2026, yeah? Try to overcome those differences and unite in a way, right, isn't it?
Yeah, but also, you've got Russian troops fighting Ukraine troops. You got Ukraine troops fighting Russian troops. Mm-hmm. Why? Well, because a small hierarchy in Russia and a small hierarchy in Ukraine, controlled from America and Europe, tells them to. What's all that about? Mm-hmm. Okay, do you want to fight them? Well, yeah, I do, because why? Well, they told me to. They're the enemy. Oh, really? Have you ever sat around a table with them, had a chat, and found how much you have in common? Well, no. But if you did, you wouldn't want to fight them. You're fighting them and they're fighting you because a tiny hierarchy is telling you both to fight each other. Mm-hmm. So what's what wars are? Oh, Trump, oh, yeah, we're going to invade Venezuela. We're going to bomb Iran. Oh, really? Are you doing it, Donald? Or are you sipping coffee in the White House while others are sent to do it? Same with all of them. Tony Blair, look at the unbelievable numbers of people that died in Iraq. Tony Blair's ever heard a gun fired in anger? Boy George Bush? No. Let us tell the young people of their country to go and do it. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking about, oh, yeah, we're going to get ready for war with Russia. You can stick it up your arse, mate. We're not cooperating with you psychopaths. No more. And if we do, the power was with us all along. Yes, exactly. Come on, people. Enough of it. Enough of subordination to someone else's will. Live your own life. Make your own decisions. I don't care if your parents are telling you what to do or your boss is telling you what to do or your prime minister. You decide what you do. And then you'll realize you're not an insignificant little unit. You are of immense power and you can create your own reality. they're just kidding us that our reality comes from obeying them. It's not true. It never was.
David, thank you very much, man. Keep going, mate. Keep going. Please keep going. And thank you for this.
Oh, I'm kidding. I've just started.
We'll keep following you, mate.
See ya.
If you want to read more and watch more of my content, then go to the description under the video where you can buy my books. The latest one is The Roadmap, where you can get tickets for public events, and how you can subscribe to a fantastic video channel called Iconic, iconic.com.